Hello and welcome to this presentation on the Custom Union and the Custom Modernization Program, the most important and advanced program of the European Union. We are going to have, of course, detailed special references to South Sudan in the presentation. And let's get on with it. Okay, so this is just an introductory slide that I'm putting on for all the pillars, and now we're going to be focusing on the first pillar, the Custom Union. And we're going to talk in detail about it, about what is the Custom Union, what are the implications for South Sudan, how to implement it, and specific issues for the custom services. Okay, we've gone through this slide already during the introductory presentation for the EAC as a whole, as it is impossible to not talk about a Custom Union when you introduce the East African community. However, for the benefit of the viewer, let us go through this once again. And so, the Custom Union, what is a Custom Union? It has several components, and we will talk about those in detail in this presentation. The first is elimination of tariffs on goods produced within the community. The most important thing is this is within the community. Only those goods that are in the community with additional issues there are entitled for this tariff-free movement. Okay, implementation of a common external tariff. That means all 6 countries of the East African community have a single EAC tariff book, and they all implement the same tariffs for goods coming from outside of the region, outside of the EAC. That tariff book is based on what's called a harmonized system. HS code has thousands upon thousands of entries, and it basically gives you a description on each and every good that can come to the East African community. And all countries, with caveats, with derogations, need to adhere to this common external tariff and its tariff book. All partner states applying tariff as prescribed in the set handbook, except for derogation. Okay, we are going to talk in this presentation a lot about the next thing, this issue here, about elimination of the non-tariff barriers. NTB elimination program has been developed and is in use for monitoring the removal of non-tariff barriers. We'll talk about that. Okay, and we are also going to talk about the fourth specific to the East African community issue with the Custom Union, which is the single custom territory. We'll talk about it later. All right, we've gone through this slide in the introductory presentation. I will not be repeating this one. I'm planning to give you in this slide a little bit of an explanation, an overview. So, you can look at the slide yourself, but the way the slide is provided starts with reasonably easy and key issues in terms of customs harmonization, such as the elimination of the tariffs, such as implementation of the common external tariff, and then it goes sequentially into more difficult and sophisticated programs, such as interconnectivity, computerization of customs, interconnectivity of customs, electronic tracking system for trucks, so on and so forth. And you can see there are many issues here. We are actually going to discuss every single one of those issues in the presentations, in the upcoming presentations. All right, let us talk about the details. The details in the implementation of the Custom Union, not the overall program, but just specifically the Custom Union. There are a lot of details. So, as already discussed, we need to fully implement the Harmonized System Code. We talked what the code is briefly. It is based on the World Customs Organization, WHO's Harmonized System Convention, of which members of the World Customs Organization use. All right, they use the tarification in line with the convention. All right, how does the East African community's common external tariff look like? It is very important. So how does that thick handbook EAC tariff handbook look like? It starts with a lot of zeros. It then follows with a lot of tens, and then it comes with 25s. That is a huge oversimplification. However, as a rule of thumb, is that natural resources and materials and simple materials, natural goods, come with zero tariff, okay? 10% tariff come intermediate goods for production, and the final goods are 25%. Why? That is in order to spur manufacturing and production in the East African community. Because in order to produce, you need to have materials, you need to have intermediate goods. And the assumption is that final finished goods, they can be taxed significantly at 25% because there's not much value added the East African community countries can anymore provide to the finished goods. And so 25% would be issues such as TVs, furniture, all sorts of things. Okay. Some other issues. Implement a tariff on sensitive goods. This is very important. We discussed it in detail as to the fact that when you implement a custom union, and the pros and cons, when you implement a custom union, some countries may need slightly different tariffs. And what the East African community does is every year there is a sensitive goods list. Sensitive goods, those that the East African as a whole agree that the tariff will be different from 0, from 10 and 25%. Okay, that is one way to make sure that different countries have their preferred tariff structure. And also there is a stay of application. Every year also there is a chance for each country to negotiate at the EAC Council of Ministers the specific tariff levels for that country, different from another East African community member. And that's why it is stay of application. That is why it's called. These are quite important issues, often used and often negotiated yearly at the various EAC structures. All right. So, what does South Sudan need to do in order to eliminate internal tariff and charges of equivalent effect? So, what does the country need to do? Implement a system whereby EAC products that qualify under EAC rules of origin regulation and as such originate within the EAC do not attract import duties. I will talk about this in a moment in more detail. Implement a system where manufacturing products that qualify under EAC rules of origin regulation and as such originate in South Sudan do not attract import duties when traded to other EAC partner states. That's this flip side of the same argument that I just said. All right. Eliminate charges of equivalent effect on internal trade. So any taxes that are specifically pointed and applied to goods coming from abroad and specifically from the East African community will need to be either applied for all the goods, including those manufactured and produced in South Sudan, or need to be withdrawn. Okay? Okay. So, that is in short in terms of the custom union. I think where I would like to go now is I'm going to speak about rules of origin, and we're going to come back to the issue that I would want to speak a little later is the Custom Management Act. So, we talked about the rules of origin. They are an integral, important part of the custom union. What are rules of origin? Rules of origin are specific procedures to implement that are very core of the establishment of the custom union. Without rules of origin, it is impossible to administratively establish a tariff preference system. This is quite important. This is simply because In absence of such a system, there will be no way to differentiate between EAC-made products and goods coming from other countries. And since we want to apply different tariffs for EAC goods and goods coming from another countries, we need to implement what's called system of rules of origin. Okay? Equally, without a system of rules of origin, South Sudan will not be able to benefit from tariff-free exportation. Now, the system of rules of origin already exists in the EAC, and South Sudan may only need to provide certificates of origin for goods coming from the from South Sudan that would be allowed and applied by, say, customs in Uganda, customs in Kenya. And once that South Sudanese manufacturers come to the border of Uganda and Kenya, show the certificate, they are allowed to receive tariff-free treatment. So I had already slightly gone ahead, and the key issue with the system of rules of origin, the system that allows you to differentiate between goods coming from the East African community and not, the core of that is, of course, certification of origin. In particular, here the following needs to be achieved. The certificates of origin issued by EAC partner state need to be accepted by GOS. Yes, I mentioned that. And government of South Sudan needs to start issuing its all certificates of origin. And how do you receive a certificate of origin? Well, there needs to be a governing body that will determine whether this good is really produced in South Sudan, or that in some partner states in the East African community, that governing body is the National Revenue Authority. In others, it is the Chamber of Commerce. And basically, the Chamber of Commerce, based on certain criteria, determines whether good is made fully in South Sudan or only partially, and is maybe not applicable for trade preferences. Now, what are these criteria? This is the key issue here. Isn't it the key issue? Goods shall be accepted as originating in partner state where they are consigned directly from another partner state under following criteria, essentially. They have been wholly produced as provided under Rule of 5. And I will speak about the Rule of 5. What does wholly produced mean? Okay, they have been produced in, say, South Sudan, wholly or partially from materials imported from outside of the partner state under the following criteria. Okay, the cost insurance freight value of those materials does not exceed 60% of the cost of material used in the production of the good. So, if the value of materials, if, for example, you had imported, for this particular shirt, you have imported the cost of material that is 90% of the cost of final manufacturing, then this shirt cannot be qualified for trade preferences under EAC rules. Another rule is the value added resulted from process of production accounts for at least 35% of ex-factory cost of the good. And it's the similar approach as with the cost insurance freight value, but here we talk about value added. If the value added isn't big enough for within the particular EAC partner state, then we cannot qualify this particular shirt as originating from the EAC. The goods are classified or become classifiable under tariff heading other than the tariff heading under which it was imported. So, if, for example, I am importing shirts that are blue and then I dye them no, sorry, that are white, and then I dye them into blue. There is no change of tariff classification or tariff heading. And the shirts I imported are also shirts when I export them. When I imported them from outside of the region and I import them to, say, a partner, EAC partner state, that then does not qualify for rules of origin. Okay, and I have been talking here about rule number A, or number 1, was the goods that are wholly produced. What are those goods that are wholly produced? Mineral products extracted from the ground or seabed are considered wholly produced. Vegetable products harvested within the East African community are wholly produced. Live animals born and raised within the community. Products obtained from live animals that are born and raised within the community. Products obtained by hunting, fishing conducted within the partner state. Products obtained from sea, rivers, lakes within the partner state. Okay. Products manufactured in a factory of a partner state exclusively from products referred in the subparagraph. Okay, so this is rules of origin. Okay, so it's quite an important issue actually, one that can hinder or can facilitate, if you'd like, at some point, customs union, free trade, and so on. Okay, I'd like to speak now about East African Communities Custom Management Act. We had now discussed in detail the custom union in introduction. In this presentation, we are going to, there is also the next presentation, which gives you less of details for customs, but more a broader picture of an understanding where does in the economy the custom union fall, because it's a cross-cutting and issue that really impacts many areas. However, what I would like to talk about now is subcomponents of the custom modernization program of the EAC, and very importantly, that custom modernization program had significant effects for the East African community. Since the creation of the EAC, the time to move a container from Mombasa to Rwanda has fallen from 3 weeks to 4 days, 3 days, thanks in part to the overall custom modernization program that the EAC and its structures have implemented. And one of the important subcomponents of that program is the EAC Custom Management Act. All right? The adoption of the Custom Management Act means that the Act will be directly applicable on the territory of Republic of South Sudan, and it will take precedent of the custom laws of the Republic. What are the details of the Custom Management Act? Well, it's a broad-based legal text that outlines the very way the custom services in the EAC need to be administered. That is very important. It deals with the relationship between the EAC Custom Director, the PS Customs, the harmonization of documents, the structures of the custom offices, the operational hours, so on and so forth. It is a critical document, and it was the only document of the East African community that, or rather a law that was repealed by all other states and taken as a whole by countries, understanding the importance of customs. All right. There are numerous regulations within the Custom Management Act, and these are EAC Custom Management Regulations, EAC Custom Management Regulations, duty remission, related to duty remission, EAC Custom Management Regulations related to working arrangements between Director and Customs, EAC Custom Management Regulations related to compliance enforcement. There are numerous manuals being also developed, such as EAC Post-Clearance Manual, EAC Duty Remission Manual. All this needs to be analyzed, internalized, and implemented by the custom authorities. Okay, we have gone through rules of origin. Let me continue And I would like to talk about the next component of the EAC Custom Modernization Program. That component is the Approved Economic Operator. Okay. The program was introduced in 2016 as quite an interesting program, and it's based on the following. Any individual or business entity involved in international trade may benefit from faster custom clearance procedures if recognized as low-risk company by custom authorities. So if you're a trustworthy company, if you have been dealing with these issues for several years with no troubles, with no bureaucratic problems or civil problems or any of that sort, you may apply for the Approved Economic Operator scheme. If you receive the scheme, you can have significant benefits. Custom declarations from traders and manufacturing with the Approved Economic Operator status are given priority through the whole clearance process. All right. Approved Economic Operator clearance of forwarding agents are accorded priority treatment in cargo clearance chain and waiver from bond requirement. So you're given priority at borders, priorities with the cargo clearance chain, and even no need for bond requirements. Benefits of the AEO status for transporters include priority clearance at borders and exemptions from mandatory use of electronic tracking system. Participation in the program is free of charge, and AEO status is granted for 3 years and it can be renewed. Okay? Another worthy subcomponent of the East African Community's Custom Modernization Program is the Simplified Trade Regime. Okay, the Simplified Trade Regime is a special provision aimed specifically at small traders who regularly transact in low-value consignments. In the EAC, many of the small-scale traders are predominantly youth and women and targets, but not exclusively. In order for the consignment to be STR compliant, a small-scale trader needs to obtain a simplified certificate of origin. The SCOO exempts consignments of the goods under the following criteria: or if it originates with the EAC and are valued under $2,000 US. In that case, if they're originating from the EAC and they're valued under $2,000 US, you don't have to pay duties. Fully exempt, and not only you are fully exempt, you are completely free to cross the border without any problems. Okay. The simplified trade regime targets specifically small-scale traders who regularly transact in local consignments who are exempt from custom duties and other related taxes. And yes, what are the three key components? Is the simplified custom document, which is very helpful, simplified certificate of origin, which we already discussed, and another component of this is that there is a common list of products and threshold of value of consignment. Each country agrees on a common list of products under which the simplified border procedures can be applied. Okay, that is yet one other subcomponent of the custom modernization program. Moving on to another subcomponent, common customs territory or single customs territory is one of the key components of the custom work, and it's a little bit more complicated, but let's analyze it together. Okay, so we have three pillars of the single customs territory: free circulation of goods, a revenue management system, and an adequate legal and institutional framework. It was rolled out in 2014, and at present, assumption is that all imports into the EAC and intra-EAC transfers of goods are cleared under the simplified trade regime. Now, what is important, it is related to imports into the East African Union. Now remember that. And this free circulation of goods under the single customs territory has the following principles. Imports into the EAC, they are subject to the common external tariff imports. Imports are declared only at the country of destination and are released at the point of entry. The goods are then moved under single bond to the final destination. Unlike the previous system, where transit goods and goods for warehousing enter as such in each country, they are now declared only once and are covered by a single regional bond system. Okay? Intra-EAC transfer of good. Here, the duty is being paid for goods continue to be subject to custom duties when transferred to another country. Locally produced goods are subject to applicable domestic taxes and levied when transferred to another country. Okay? Exports to market outside of the East African Community. That is a whole different story here. They are covered by the single regional bond guarantee. Depending on the level of risk, they are monitored through electronic cargo tracking system. Ports and border operations. What are the components of that under the single customs territory? The activities and agencies involved in the clearance of cargo at ports and borders are to be centralized through a single window system at designated one-stop border posts. Finally, each revenue authority has its own distinctive revenue management system. Taxes and duties are assessed and paid at destination by partner states. Okay, key issue here. You may wish to analyze this a little further. You can even go back with the presentation to get each and every detail on the single customs territory appropriately. Interconnectivity of customs and automation is another subcomponent of the custom modernization program. Okay, let's go. East African Community custom administrations have already automated their custom systems, and this has enhanced custom clearance. In order to further integrate these systems, a project to internet customs processes is currently ongoing. Interfaces of custom systems have been attained on bilateral and centralized custom known as RADEX. And this RADEX basically supports the interconnectivity of, say, the Elegu and Nimule. And so that Ugandan custom officers at Elegu can talk electronically and exchange documentation, exchange information with the Nimule customs. Okay, and they use the RADEX system. In terms of actual custom software, the issue being that is specifically why we need that RADEX also is because many countries use different software. So Secure World is being used in Rwanda, Uganda, and Burundi, whereas in Kenya we have a different system, integrated custom management system. In Tanzania, we have the Tanzanian custom integrated system, also a separate one. The use of different systems is potentially a source of delays in cargo clearance, mainly for transit goods. Okay. South Sudan is yet to computerize its customs. In this respect, South Sudan needs to undertake the following. Implement the EAC custom IT regulations. Implement a pilot stage where you implement possibly the Asekuda at Nimule border. Migrate to Asekuda World following the pilot. Okay? Undertake a comprehensive program for automation of custom systems and comprehensive training program. Procure additional computer and recruit IT and computer staff. That is to say the least. Let's move on to the non-tariff barriers. Non-tariff barriers are a huge problem in Africa and elsewhere in the world. And they are basically procedures, both legal and possibly illegal, that constrain trade, that are specifically designed to constrain trade rather than anything else. And to some extent, These should be avoided in order to facilitate movement of goods. So one can say that these are laws, regulations, and administrative and technical requirements other than tariffs whose effect is to impede trade. These plague Africa and cause a huge increase in trade costs. And when you have huge and significant trade costs, the cost of living are high. Food prices are high, so on and so forth. So in 2017, in addition to issues that I will talk in a moment that happened before that, the East African Community passed IALA, so East African Legislative Assembly, has passed an act of the Parliament, which is EAC Elimination Act of 2017. It prohibits entities. It prohibited certain activities by public offices and institutions. And it further mandated the creation of the national monitoring committees and national focal points on NTBs. The committees constitute of government, private sector, and civil society. Furthermore, the East African Community has now an online and SMS system for notification of NTBs. And there is also a regional NTB committee. Prior to that, in order to facilitate the removal of NTBs, already the Council of Ministers in 2009 has mandated the creation of NTB Monitoring Committee and National Monitoring Committees. They meet quarterly to discuss progress and elimination of these barriers. Okay? All right, let us talk about this now. What are these barriers? I'm going to give you examples which have already been solved, or the discussion on this is much less now, but what have been the NTBs incurred in the EAC? They can be as simple as tissue paper. Uganda has made a case that the tissue paper produced in the East African Community, specifically in Uganda, has not been treated as tariff-free by Kenya. One possible MTB. Another one, Kenya banned the importation of brown sugar at times. That could also be considered an MTB. When we look at a little bit more technical NTBs, NTBs can be delays in issuance of registration certificate by the Food and Drug Authorities. Maybe in this case, this was the Kenyan authority, okay? Another technical NTB can be companies exporting to Tanzania have to register, relabel, and retest certificates related to food and drug exportation. Or possibly milk exported can attract numerous charges collected by different institutions in partner states. Okay, South Sudan had its share of NTBs, and one of them could possibly be the certificates of conformity that you have to acquire even before you arrive at the border. And these are expensive, difficult to get, and cause bureaucratic hassle. Okay, so what are the mechanisms for elimination of those NTBs? So the first one can be a mutual agreement or mediation. The second one can be implementation of EAC time-bound mechanism enshrined in the NTB law. Okay. Upon a written notification from a reporting country, the National Monitoring Committee of a responsible country investigates the impact of the barrier, identifies the required timeframes and potential changes that need to take place. And under some circumstances, the assumption is that partner state which has the NTB in place shall resolve the reported NTB within 10 days, possibly for perishable days, and within 30 days for other products. Another mechanism for elimination of NTBs is laws, regulation, directives, and recommendations of the Council. Another mechanism is reference, to the Council of Ministers. Okay. Finally, you can also go to the East African Court of Justice. Okay. Okay, so we're heading towards the end of this presentation, but before that I would like to talk about administrative, procedural and capacity building steps towards the implementation of the Custom Union and the Custom Modernization Program. Short-term priorities is critical for the Customs and the National Revenue Authority to attend all the relevant meetings of the EAC Sectoral Council and EAC committees in the area of customs. Second is that South Sudan needs to implement the Custom Union and restructure the tariff in line with what I've been explaining in this presentation. And the key short-term priority is provision of adequate resources. In the medium term, it is a painstaking work in order to implement the changes, administrative bureaucratic changes to the overall custom offices and the way the custom works. So we are talking here about all these custom management regulations, related duty remission, related work arrangements, related to the Directorate of Customs, related to compliance and enforcement, clearance manuals, remission manuals, all this. All right, let me continue. Cross-cutting short to mid-term priorities is training. It is critical to increase training because of the sophistication and complexity in implementation of all those issues. Okay, international donor support may be very necessary. In terms of technical analyses and requirements, I would say and argue that there are some technical reports that need to be done. First is a possible analysis of the impact of the Custom Union on the government budget, and such an analysis would need to propose mitigating policies. Those mitigating policies is how to, if the report will find a gap in financing of the budget, what would be the type of taxation that could mitigate the loss of government revenue due to a custom union in South Sudan. Study to assess the prevalence of charges of equivalent effect that may distort trade. Identify the above mentioned charges and propose ways to eliminate them in line with EAC custom modernization requirements. That would be the second study. Okay? At this point, it's been a long presentation. I'd like to thank you for listening. The next presentation, as I already said, gives you a more global view and a regional view on the custom union and the issues thereof. Thank you very much for listening.